Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hey Sara Sara. My name is Geetali Shivashankar, and I'll be your host. Hey Sara Sara is a multidisciplinary podcast where I sit down with students, founders, creators, and change makers to explore the stories, passions, and ideas behind what they do. Today, we're joined by our very first international guest, Dhriti, joining us from India. Dhriti is an IB diploma student at Oak Ridge International School and the creator of Swara Loka, a digital platform dedicated to making Carnatic music more accessible through performances, storytelling, and explanations about ragas, compositions, and their cultural significance. Alongside her passion for music, she's also deeply interested in technology, data science, artificial intelligence, and innovation, proving that tradition and modernity don't have to exist separately. Today, we'll be talking about Carnatic music, digital storytelling, technology, and what it means to preserve culture in an increasingly connected world. We're so excited to have you here. Welcome to the podcast, Dorothy.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, so before we dive into Swaraloka, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Dhriti and I'm currently an IB diploma student in Hyderabad, India. I'd say I'm someone who's always had a foot in the world of tradition and other in technology. So I've been learning Carnatic music since I was really young, and it's become a huge part of my life. And at the same time, I'm also fascinated by things like AI, data science, and innovation, as you mentioned before. So most of the things I work on tend to sit somewhere between these two interests. And I'm also the
Mhm.
creator of Swaraloka, which is basically my attempt to make Carnatic music a less intimidating art form and a lot more accessible online.
Wow, that's so cool. So, as our first international guest, I have to ask, what's life like as an IB student in India, and how has your environment shaped your interests?
Right. So the short answer would be busy, and the long answer
Mhm.
would be that since I'm an IBDP student in India, it means basically that you're constantly balancing a lot of things. Academics are taken very seriously here, but at the same time, there's so much more emphasis on extracurriculars, competitions, and leadership opportunities as well. So, growing up in India also means that you're surrounded by a lot of culture, history, and language and traditions as well. So, I'd say that's exactly where I felt connected to Carnatic music. And at the same time, India is also incredibly fast moving when it comes to technology and innovation. So, I've kind of grown up seeing both worlds coexisting at the same time, and that naturally shaped my interests.
Oh, wow, that's really nice.
Thank
Wow.
you.
So, you've been learning Carnatic music since childhood. What initially drew you to it, and what has kept you connected over the years?
Right. So I've always loved music, even as a little kid. Singing was something I naturally enjoyed. So when I started learning Carnatic music, and it just clicked with me. So over time, it became so much more just than learning songs or like learning the ragas. I started appreciating the stories behind the compositions, like the emotions that each raga can convey, and the incredible history that's woven into the music. So even after all these years, I still feel like there's something new to learn every time I practice or listen. And that's what makes it so exciting for me.
That's perfect because I'm also into music too. So, this is like we're
Amazing.
kind of
Yeah.
like connected.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about Swara Loka. What inspired you to create it and where did the name come from?
Right. So the inspiration came from something I noticed whenever I talked to my friends about Carnatic music. So, like a lot of people assumed it was either too difficult or too traditional, or something only that experts could understand. But I knew from experience that once you understand a little bit of the story behind a song, it becomes more enjoyable, right?
Hmm.
So I wanted to create a platform that acts as a bridge between newcomers and the art form itself. So, as for the name, I would say Swara basically means musical note, and Loka means the world.
Hmm.
So, Swarloka roughly translates to like a world of musical notes, which felt like the perfect description of what I wanted to build.
Wow. Okay, so for someone who has never listened to Carnatic music before, what is Swara Loka trying to offer them?
I would say it's trying to offer a friendly starting point to Carnatic music. I think sometimes traditional art forms come with this feeling that you need years of training before you can appreciate them. Swarloka is basically trying to remove that barrier that people already have created before. So if you've never listened to music before, I want you to be able to watch a video and walk away understanding what a raga is, why a composition is even written in the first place, or what emotion that music is trying to convey.
Hmm.
So basically, I'm trying to make people more curious rather than feeling overwhelmed after watching these videos.
Okay, perfect. So one thing I really like find interesting about your work is like how you blend tradition with technology. So why do you think digital platforms are important for preserving art forms like Carnatic music?
Right. So I would say that's because that's exactly where people are right now in today's world.
Mhm.
If younger generations spend a large part of their lives online, so then culture needs to meet them there. So
Mhm.
traditionally, learning Carnatic music happened mostly through in-person trainings, which is still incredibly valuable, I would say. But digital platforms allow someone on the other side of the world to discover a raga, learn about a composer, and also hear about a performance they otherwise might not have ever encountered in their lives. So, ideally, technology doesn't really replace tradition, it expands its reach.
All right, perfect. So you're also interested in AI, machine learning, and data science. So do you see any similarities between music and technology?
Yes, of course, definitely. At first, they seemed completely unrelated. One feels artistic and the other feels analytical. But then, when you look closer and involve both patterns, structure, creativity, and problem solving, so like in Carnatic music, you're constantly recognizing patterns in rhythm and melody. In programming or machine learning, you're also working with patterns just in a different form. So I would say that in both fields, there's this funny moment where after you've learned all the rules, creativity comes from how you use them, right? So honestly, I think they're more similar than most people realize.
That's great. Okay, so looking ahead, like, what do you hope Swara Local will be like in the next few years? Like the next few years.
Um, Me personally, I think I would love for it to grow into a community rather than just a YouTube channel. I'd like to create more educational content, collaborate with other musicians, and make learning resources that help beginners get started. And if someone from a completely different country discovers Carnatic music through Swarloka and decides that they want to learn more, I think that would be a huge success.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, if you could introduce one thing about Indian culture to every person in the world, what would it be?
Food feels like an obvious answer, but which is exactly why I'm attempted to say food. But like honestly, I'd probably say the idea of storytelling because in India, stories are everywhere in music, dance, festivals, literature, even everyday conversations, I would say. So
Mhm.
a lot of our traditions have survived because people kept telling stories and passing them down. So I think that's something really special.
Okay, perfect. So, if you had unlimited resources, what's one project combining music and technology that you'd love to build?
Okay, so that's such a dangerous question because
Yeah.
now I get to dream big, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'd love to create an AI-powered interactive platform where someone could just explore Carnatic music, almost like a virtual museum, I would say. So like you could just click on a raga and hear how it sounds, learn its history, or discover famous compositions and see how all of that is connected to other ragas and maybe even get personalized learning recommendations. So basically, I'd want to make centuries of musical knowledge feel as accessible as opening an app.
Okay. So, final question. So, if someone listening feels like they have to choose between pursuing traditional interests and modern ones, what would you tell them?
I tell them that it's a false choice because for a long time, people act as if you have to be either the arts person or like the tech person. But in real life, it isn't that neat. Some of the most interesting ideas happen when different fields come together. And for me, Carnatic music and technology aren't competing interests, they actually strengthen each other. So one teaches me creativity and cultural perspective, while the other gives me tools to share those things with more people.
Mhm.
So, I would just say one thing, don't be afraid to pursue multiple passions. You don't have to fit into one box just because it's easier for other people to understand.
Wow. So thank you so much for being in this podcast. It's very inspirational. And as a music person myself, it's like, perfect because I also want to like pursue in the medical
Right.
field. So this is like I can balance both of them and still enjoy them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. And
Thank you so much for having me for this podcast. And I hope your
of course,
podcast goes forward as a community, as mentioned before. Yeah.
of
All the
course.
best.